You know those nights that start off completely normal? The ones where you feel safe, where nothing seems out of place? That's how my Friday night began. Just another quiet evening at home with my boyfriend, Mark. We had been together for 5 years, long enough that we had routines, inside jokes, and a shared Netflix list we never strayed from. It was Mark's turn to pick the movie, and he chose some 3-hour-long documentary about financial markets. Not exactly thrilling, but that was Mark. Always fascinated by numbers, investments, and everything I couldn't care less about. About 40 minutes in, I glanced over and saw him completely knocked out on the couch, his phone loosely in his hand. I didn't think much of it. He'd been working late all week on a supposedly huge campaign at his marketing firm. He was exhausted. And then his phone lit up. One message, then another, then another. At first, I wasn't paying attention, but then I saw the name. Work event. Odd. That wasn't a person's name. And the preview of the text? It stopped. Me cold. Last night was incredible. I can't wait to see you again. I froze. Another message came in. Miss your touch already. My stomach dropped. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. For a few seconds, I just sat there, staring at the screen, hoping, begging that there was some kind of innocent explanation, but I already knew there wasn't. I don't know what came over me, but I grabbed his phone. My hands were shaking. I hesitated for a second. This was his phone, his privacy. But then I thought about our house. We had just put a down payment on a place 2 weeks ago. My savings, years of hard work, were tied up in that. I had to know the truth. So I opened the messages. It wasn't just flirty texts. It was months of conversations, explicit messages, hotel receipts, photos, plans, inside jokes. And worst of all, there were texts about me. I just don't know how to end things with her. She's been talking about our future. I feel guilty, but I can't stop. I'll figure things out soon. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling like I was outside my own body. I wanted to scream, wake him up, demand answers. But something inside me, something calm and almost terrifying, told me to wait. I put his phone back exactly how it was, covered him with a blanket like nothing had happened. Then I went to the bathroom and had the quietest panic attack of my life. The next morning, Mark woke up like nothing had happened. He stretched, rubbed his eyes, and mumbled something about needing coffee. Then he walked over and kissed me on the forehead, the same way he always did. If I hadn't seen those messages the night before, I would have believed everything was normal. He moved around the kitchen, making his usual oatmeal and black coffee, talking about weekend plans, painting colors for our new house, and how he wanted to check out a new furniture store for ideas. I sat there, sipping my coffee, watching him. The way he smiled, the way he spoke, like he wasn't living a double life. I don't know how I did it, but I played along. I nodded, laughed at his dumb jokes, even suggested we go to brunch before hitting the furniture store. He grinned. Brunch sounds great. I forced a smile back. Good. Let's act like nothing's wrong. The moment he left for the gym, I grabbed my phone and called my best friend, Nina. She picked up on the second ring. What's up? I didn't even know how to start. I need you to come over. She knew from my voice. I'll be there in 10. By the time she arrived, I was sitting on the couch, phone in hand, still staring at the screen like the words would change if I looked long enough. I handed it to her without a word. She read through the messages, every single one. I watched her face shift from confusion to disbelief to full-on rage. Are you kidding me? She said, scrolling. Faster. How long has this been going on? I exhaled sharply. At least 2 months based on the texts. She looked up at me. What are you gonna do? I stared at her blankly. Because I didn't know. Nina grabbed my laptop. Let's check something. She pulled up our joint credit card statements. We had opened a shared account when we started saving for a house, mainly for groceries and bills. But as she scrolled, A pattern started to form. There were restaurant charges from places I'd never been to, Uber rides to addresses I didn't recognize, a hotel charge from last weekend when Mark told me he was on a business trip. I felt sick. It wasn't just messages, it was real. He's literally using your own money to cheat on you. Nina's voice was cold. I clenched my jaw. I had sacrificed so much for this relationship, put my savings into our future, built a life around a man who was sneaking around behind my back. But I wasn't going to fall apart. I took a deep breath, looked at Nina. I don't just want to confront him, I said, my voice steady. I want to destroy him. Nina leaned forward, intrigued. What are you thinking? I sat back, staring at the ceiling, letting the first real ideas take shape. I need more proof, I said. Something undeniable. He'll try to lie, twist the story, make me feel crazy. I can't let that happen. She nodded. We need receipts, more than just screenshots. And then, I smirked. Then I let him walk straight into his own trap. And just like that, the plan was set in motion. For the next few days, I played my part perfectly. The loving, clueless girlfriend, excited about my work trip. Mark never suspected a thing. If anything, he seemed almost too eager to see me go. He asked 0 questions about the conference. No, what's it about? No, who else is going? Not even a fake attempt at pretending he'd miss me. Instead, he just nodded. That'll be good for your career, he said casually, sipping his coffee. How long will you be gone? Thursday to Sunday, I answered, pretending to scroll through my phone. That's when I saw it, the flicker in his eyes. A moment of excitement, like he was already making plans in his head. And that's how I knew. I wasn't actually leaving town, but Mark had to believe I was. So, I went through all the motions. Booked a fake flight using an airline's free hold option. Sent myself a fake itinerary for a conference that didn't exist. Packed a suitcase, making sure he saw me doing it. The night before my trip, I even sighed and said, I'm gonna miss you. Mark smiled and kissed me, a little too easily. Now, I needed proof. Screenshots weren't enough. If I confronted him with texts, he'd lie, gaslight me, twist the story. So I installed a hidden doorbell camera. It wasn't hard. Mark left all the tech stuff to me. I placed it in a blind spot, high up, near the doorframe. It would capture everything. And then I went one step further. Through our shared phone plan, I had access to his location history. A quick search confirmed what I already suspected. He had been spending Tuesday and Thursday nights at an apartment across town. I plugged the address into social media. Dina. That's when my stomach twisted. Because this wasn't just cheating. This was a second life. Thursday afternoon, I put on my coat, grabbed my suitcase, and kissed Mark goodbye. He actually helped carry my bag to the car, said he'd miss me, told me to have fun. The second I drove away, I knew exactly what he was doing. I parked around the block, waited 20 minutes, then drove straight to Nina's place. We set up a command center. Snacks, a laptop. My phone opened to the doorbell camera feed. Then we waited. At 7:42 p.m., the doorbell camera lit up. And there she was, Dina, carrying an overnight bag and a bottle of wine. Mark opened the door, pulled her inside, and I recorded everything. I sat on Nina's couch, my phone resting in my hands, the doorbell camera feed open. We had snacks and wine in front of us, but neither of us touched them. My heart was racing, but my hands were steady. I wasn't crying, I wasn't shaking, I was waiting. Then, at exactly 7:42 p.m., the motion sensor went off. There she was, Dina. She stood at the door, holding an overnight bag and a bottle of wine. I expected to feel a fresh wave of pain, some final stab in the chest. But I didn't. I just felt cold. Because this moment, this exact moment, was what I had been waiting for. The door swung open and Mark appeared, his face lit up. And then, he pulled her in and kissed her. I clenched my jaw, pressed record. They disappeared inside. For a moment, neither Nina nor I said a word. We just sat there, watching the screen. Finally, Nina exhaled sharply. You okay? I nodded, my voice calm. I just caught him in 4K. For the next hour, I watched, detached, calculating, as they played house in my apartment. They made dinner together, laughing over glasses of wine. She changed into one of my sweaters, a detail that nearly made me lose it. Mark put on music and slow danced with her in our living room. Every second that passed, I felt less and less like a heartbroken girlfriend, and more like someone gathering evidence for a case. This wasn't just cheating. This was comfortable, routine, a double life. I turned to Nina. I'm gonna get closer. She frowned. What do you mean? I held up my old phone, the one I barely used anymore. I'm going to set this up outside the bedroom window. She stared at me. You're serious? As a heart attack. Nina's older brother, Eric, was outside, smoking when I explained my plan. He stared at me for a second, then shrugged. You need backup? I grinned. Nah, just lookout duty. We lived on the second floor, but our balcony wrapped around to the bedroom window. Mark never closed the curtains fully. I had complained about it 100 times. I knew there would be a gap. So I climbed. Carefully. Quietly. My heart is pounding. And there it was. Through the small opening in the curtains, I had a clear view of our bed. I positioned my old phone at the perfect angle and hit record. Then, I climbed back down, walked inside, and sat back down with Nina. She blinked at me. That was kinda badass. I exhaled. Now we wait. At around 10:30 p.m., my phone lit up. A message from Mark. Hey babe, how's the conference? Miss you. I stared at the screen, my grip tightening. He was in our bed with someone else, and he had the nerve to text me like nothing was happening, like I was a fool. Nina glanced at me. What are you gonna say? I took a deep breath. Typed back. Miss you too. Can't wait to see you Sunday. Because I wasn't done yet. I was about to make sure he never saw me again. I barely slept that night. Not because I was sad, because my mind was calculating every move. By the time the sun came up, I knew exactly what needed to happen. Mark was still at work, which meant I had a 3-hour window to pack up my things and vanish before he even knew what hit him. Nina and her brothers showed up ready to go. We moved fast. I only took what was undeniably mine: clothes, personal belongings, electronics, important documents. I left every shared item behind: the couch, the TV, the furniture we picked out. Together? I didn't want a single thing that reminded me of him. I made sure everything looked untouched, except for one final touch. Right next to his coffee maker, I left a printed stack of texts between him and Dina. Screenshots of credit card charges, every dinner, hotel, and Uber ride. A single handwritten note. You lied, I left. And my key. Then I walked out for the last time. By noon, my phone started blowing up. First, confusion. Babe, where are you? Your stuff is gone? Then denial. This isn't what you think. Please, just talk to me. Then anger. You had no right to go through my phone. I ignored every message. Blocked him on everything. But I wasn't finished. Because now, it was time to let everyone else know. I sent the doorbell footage to his parents and to his boss. Because, surprise, surprise, fraternization was against company policy. It took less than a day for Mark's world to start falling apart. By noon, he had bombarded my email, one of the only places he could still reach me. First, confusion. Babe, where are you? Your stuff is gone? What's happening? Then panic. Please, just call me. Let's talk about this. It's not what you think. Then anger. I can't believe you invaded my privacy like this. You had no right to go through my phone. Yes, the classic defense of a guilty man. Still, I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because the real damage had already been set in motion. I wasn't the only one who saw the evidence. By 2 p.m., his parents had received the email, the one with the video. I hadn't added any message, just a simple, I thought you should know. It took about 20 minutes for Mark's phone to blow up, His mom called 4 times in a row. His dad texted, "We need to talk, now." His parents had always liked me. They had welcomed me into their family when Mark and I got serious. And they had helped with the down payment for our house, which meant they had a financial stake in this. And now they wanted their money back. While Mark was still scrambling to figure out what was happening, my next email landed in his boss's inbox. Why? Because Mark wasn't just cheating on me. He was cheating at work. Their office had a strict no fraternization policy, especially between employees at different levels. Mark had just been promoted. Dina was technically under him. So when his boss opened my email and saw the evidence, HR got involved. By 5 p.m., Mark was called into a meeting. By the next morning, he was placed on probation. His promotion, gone. And the best part? The guy who had been overlooked for that promotion, Mark's coworker, Ryan, was now suddenly back in the running. Karma? It works fast. By Friday afternoon, Dina herself was spiraling. She had assumed that if I found out, I would just be mad at Mark. She hadn't counted on the rest of the world finding out too. HR pulled her in for questioning. By the time she realized her own job was in danger, she tried to distance herself from Mark. She called him, begging him to fix this. He didn't. Instead, she was given 2 choices: transfer to another branch, face an HR investigation. She chose the transfer. By Monday morning, she was on a plane back to her hometown. By the end of the week, word had spread. Our mutual friends started asking questions. At first, Mark tried to spin it. It was just a misunderstanding. Things between me and my name weren't working out anyway. She's overreacting. But then, someone sent them the video. And suddenly, Mark wasn't just a guy who got caught cheating. He was a liar, a manipulator, a fool. Our closest friends took my side. The few people who stayed neutral, well, they started distancing themselves from him too, because nobody wants to be friends with the guy who got exposed. By the end of the week, Mark had nothing left. He sent one last pathetic email. "You destroyed my life. I hope you're happy." I sat there, staring at the screen. And for the first time in months, I smiled. Because yes, Mark, I was. By the end of the week, Mark had nothing left. No job security, no girlfriend, no financial support from his parents. The perfect little world he had built on lies and deceit had come crashing down around him. And yet he still wasn't done trying to get to me. Even though I had blocked him everywhere, he found ways around it. He sent emails from alternate addresses. He had mutual friends text me, trying to guilt-trip me into talking. He even showed up at places he thought I'd be, like my favorite coffee shop. At first, I ignored him. But then, one day, I ran into him. It happened completely, by accident. I was at a coffee shop across town, one that Mark never liked because, according to him, it was too hipster. I was journaling, something my therapist had suggested, when I heard a voice say my name. I looked up, and there he was. Mark. Except he didn't look like himself. His face was pale, his eyes sunken from lack of sleep. He had lost weight, the kind that happens when someone is too stressed to eat properly. His clothes were wrinkled like he had just thrown something on and left the house. For a brief second, I felt something close to pity. Then I remembered the messages. The lies. The way he had kissed her at our front door. And just like that, the pity disappeared. He hesitated, then gestured toward the empty seat across from me. "Can I sit?" I should have said no, but something in me needed closure. I nodded. He sat down, running a hand over his face. I don't know where to start." I stayed silent. He sighed. I never meant for things to happen the way they did. Classic. He went on, saying how he had been stressed about the house purchase, how he felt pressured by the commitment, and how things with Dina had started as just a distraction. I let him talk. But when he finished, I only asked one question. "If I hadn't caught you, how long would you have kept lying?" His face went blank. For the first time, he didn't have an excuse. No justification, no spin, just silence, and that silence told me everything I needed to know. I pushed my chair back, stood up, and grabbed my coffee. You know, I said, looking at him one last time, I thought this moment would feel good, watching you fall apart. But honestly, I just feel sorry for you. And then I walked away. For the first time in months, I felt light. Because now, I was truly free. I got my own apartment, a space that was entirely mine, where I didn't have to feel like I was living in someone else's shadow. I started therapy, not just to deal with the breakup, but to understand why I had ignored my instincts for so long. I cut off every last tie to Mark. No mutual friends, no lingering texts, just a clean slate. And honestly, it was the best decision I ever made. Because some betrayals don't deserve second chances. Some people don't just make mistakes, they make choices. And sometimes, the best revenge is knowing you never have to see them again. The first few weeks after everything went down were strange. Not because I missed Mark. I didn't. But because I was so used to his presence in my life that it took time to adjust to the silence. No random texts throughout the day. No dumb inside jokes. No weekend plans that revolved around his schedule. It wasn't a heartbreak. It was reprogramming. I had spent 5 years believing in a future that didn't exist. Now I had to create a new one, on my own terms. Even though I had walked away from that coffee shop without a second thought, Mark, he wasn't done. Even though I had blocked him everywhere, he still tried to get through. And the final straw? One night, Nina and I were grabbing dinner when a message popped up from an unknown number. I know I messed up. I just need to see you one last time. Please. I stared at my phone. Then, without hesitation, I blocked the number. Because what was the point? I didn't need an apology. I didn't need his guilt. I didn't need closure. Because I had already given it to myself. And that was the moment I realized he had lost all power over me. I poured all my energy into rebuilding. I decorated my new apartment exactly how I wanted. No compromises, no, maybe we should get something neutral. I booked a solo trip, something I had always wanted to do but never did because Mark was too busy. I went out with friends without checking my phone, without worrying if someone was waiting for me at home. And slowly, I started to feel like myself again. Not the person I was with Mark. Not the person who had spent months feeling betrayed and broken. But someone new. Someone stronger. The last update I got about Mark came through a mutual friend, one of the few I had stayed in touch with. He had officially transferred to another city. He had started over somewhere new, probably hoping no one knew his past. He never reached out again. And honestly, that was the best possible outcome. Because while he was out there, running from his mistakes, I was here, living my best life. People always say revenge isn't worth it. That moving on is the best thing you can do. And maybe they're right. But here's the thing. I didn't destroy Mark's life. He did that. To himself. All I did was make sure he faced the consequences. And that was enough. Because some betrayals don't deserve second chances. Some people don't just make mistakes, they make choices. And sometimes, the best revenge is knowing you never have to see them again. Weeks turned into months, and with each passing day, Mark became less and less relevant in my mind. At first, it felt strange, going entire days without thinking about him, without feeling the weight of what he had done. But then, it felt normal. And eventually, it felt right. I was no longer the girl who spent her Friday nights waiting for a cheater to come home. I was the woman who reclaimed her time, her energy, and her self-respect. One evening, about 6 months after the breakup, I was scrolling through my phone when I saw a message request from an unfamiliar account. I almost ignored it, but then I saw the name. Dina. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. Curious, I opened it. Hey, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I just wanted to say, you were right. About everything. I was stupid to believe his lies. I just found out he was seeing someone else while he was with me too. Karma, I guess. Anyway, I hope you're doing better. You deserve it. I blinked. Not because I was shocked. Because I wasn't. Mark was never going to change. He wasn't just a cheater, he was a pathological liar. And now? Dina was learning that the hard way. I didn't reply. I just smiled, closed my phone, and went back to enjoying my night. Here's the thing, people like Mark. They don't grow. They don't change. They just find new people to lie to. I could have wasted my energy hating him forever. I could have spent months stalking his social media, wondering what he was doing. But I didn't. Because I had won the second I walked away. And now, I was living proof that the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting better. Because some betrayals don't deserve second chances. Some people don't just make mistakes, they make choices. And sometimes, the best revenge is forgetting they ever existed. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. People don't change just because they get caught. They only change if they truly want to. And Mark? He never wanted to. He only regretted getting caught. But me? I had no regrets. Because some betrayals don't deserve second chances. Some people don't just make mistakes, they make choices. And sometimes the best revenge is realizing you never needed them in the first place.